If you do not, just give me a shout and I get that to you. We're going to have Scott Fitterer and Matt Rhule available to answer questions you guys have for him. Just a reminder, please use the raise hand button if you do have questions. We're going to go to Scott Fitterer to open us up, and then we will get into questions. Scott, if you're ready, you can get us started.
Yeah, it's been a long but exciting process so far. We started off with several thousand prospective, draft prospects this year. We've weaned it down to about 155 on our draft board right now. So our coaches, our scouts, they've all done an excellent job just digging and going through, the whole process with these guys through the fall, through the spring, through Zoom meetings. We've had 75, Zoom meetings to this point. We'll have more this next week. Our scouts have made all the calls. Any player on our board, they've reached out, made the phone calls, got the background. So we can't thank the coaches and the scouts enough for their work. We're excited. We feel like we're prepared. Again, 155 players out of that entire class, and we're excited about what they can help us, how they can help us.
All right, first question, let's go to Phil Orban.
Hey, this question's for Scott. Scott, I'm wondering if there's something in particular that you take from your time in Seattle, whether that's how the draft room is going to run, whether that's how you kind of organize your list of players. What's kind of the one thing that sticks out that you're bringing here from Seattle?
I think the one thing that really stood out is we have to know who the player is. Who is he as a person? Who is he as a competitor? And really, how does he fit our team? And, we find out who these guys are through our scouts, through all their contacts in college, and then what the fit is for our team. We really sit down with our coaches. We've had several meetings with them, and we don't care where they're getting drafted, what the projections are. It's really about how they fit our team, and that's what drives the value for us. So really, it starts with finding out who the person is. That's the most important part, and then through the process, how they fit our team.
Let's go to Bridget Condon, followed by Josh Graham.
Hey, this question is for Scott. Do you take what happened in Seattle, the experience there, especially in 2012 when you guys had a couple of quarterbacks and you still went ahead and drafted Russell Wilson, do you take that experience to draft night if pick number 8 comes up and the right quarterback is on the table, even though you guys have Teddy, you have Sam? Are you using that to lean on what happened there in what you might do come draft night?
Sure, I think you always learn from experiences you have. And it just doesn't, relate. It's not just quarterbacks; it's every position. I believe in bringing in the best players that can fit your team, create competition, and upgrade your roster. So, whether it's a quarterback, a corner, it doesn't matter. It's just how do they fit our team? What's the path for success, and what's our plan for them?
And just one quick follow-up: you talked about guys fitting your team in these Zoom interviews and talking with them. That's the most important part for you. Is there one specific quarterback that you feel like fits your team best out of those top 5 guys that everyone's talking about?
Yes.
Can you share?
No. No, there's actually several of them that we're excited about, just like there's several players, but we're not going to get into exactly who.
Thanks.
I've got one for Scott and one for Matt. Scott, I think it was your introductory presser. You said in most drafts, there's a certain level of player that drops off at 14, 15, or 16. Do you think that's true with this draft, and how does that impact your thinking if teams are interested beyond 15 and trading up to 8?
Yes, it's right in that range. It seems like that every year between 15 and 19, and it's right in that range once again this year. And then beyond that, it's a really strong second round, like kind of the next 30 to 40 players. It's a really good group, but there is a drop-off, and it seems to be consistent every year, and it's the same this year.
And Matt, we heard Nick Sirianni talking yesterday. He's had to get creative with ways to get to know players. He even talked about seeing how competitive they are by playing rock, paper, scissors. I'm interested, what are some ways you've used the virtual element of things to try and get to know players when you're not able to be as close to them as you'd like to be?
I just talk to them. I saw that what Nick said. It's interesting. I haven't done anything like that. To me, the tape drives who they are. Their measurables and traits drives who they are. What people say about them, I think, is really key. I think when you treat people well, people in the building we're excited to talk about you. And then as I've talked to guys, I'm leaving here and going back down and doing another Zoom call. I have some tomorrow too. I like to ask everything from, if you could, if you're on a desert island, you can only listen to one artist. What would it be? To who your favorite player was growing up? I think you find out a lot about guys. But at the end of the day, what they put on tape in college is the most important thing to me in terms of, the way that they play the game.
What would that song be on the desert island for you?
It's usually just one art. I say one artist. So you can listen to everything that they play, and for me, it would be Dave Matthews.
All right, let's go to David Newton, followed by Josh Klein.
Yeah, Scott, there's been a lot of speculation about you trading back, and because of your history, I guess, at Seattle with the Seahawks trading back. Can you say how many teams you've talked to about trading back?
We've talked to several actually already. I'd say at least 5, all in different parts of the draft, and there'll be a lot more calls this week. And yeah, we're very open to moving back. We're open to picking. It just depends on how the board falls. Those first 7 picks in front of us.
And no follow-up, I wanted to ask you, several players that could be there for you opted out this year. Explain how the process of evaluating those players that opted out for 2020 has worked for you guys, and how does that influence your decision?
Sure. Well, we have to obviously go back to 19 tape. You have to figure out, we've asked them why they opt out. They all opt out for different reasons. Many of them are good reasons too, and have no problem with that. Obviously, we like to see the most up-to-date who they are this year. It makes the evaluation process a lot easier. But this is what we were dealt with, and we'll go through the process just like we usually do, and grade the tape and evaluate the player and the person.
This question, I guess, is for both. Actually, I have 2. The first one is, how does medical information, how much of a kink is that throwing into the works, and how are you getting around that? And then also your overall thoughts for both of you on which position would be the deepest in this draft class.
Well, the top 150 did go to the combine this year. They had the medicals, so that definitely helps. The rest of the players that are on our draft board really have to dig in. We're dealing with virtual interviews, their injury history. We're getting all that information, but it makes it a little bit more difficult if we're not putting hands on them, if our doctors aren't seeing them in person. So we have to really make sure we're making the right decisions, really dissect their injury history, and if there's anything in doubt, it makes it difficult to take them.
Deepest position.
Deepest positions would be, for us, corner, tackle, receiver. That's where our most numbers are on the draft board.
Let's go to Darren Gant, followed by Steve Reed.
Scott, after being on the road so long as a college scout, what's been the most unusual part of this process for you this offseason and trying to get a handle on guys when you can't get as up close as you usually used to being able to?
Just trying to figure out who the person is. Again, that goes back, that's one of the most important evaluation tools we have, is just getting in front of the person, talking to them, figuring out what motivates them. If they look you in the eye, if you can feel them as a person. I love being in front of the guys, and it's made it difficult this year. But that's why we do the Zoom calls with them. It's why we make the phone calls. It's why we make the calls to equipment managers, coaches, whoever knows these players, and we just put this together, put the picture together the best we can.
Scott or Matt, I understand best player available at 8, but when you walk away from this draft next weekend, what positions do you feel like you kind of have to address on this team?
You're on a roll, brother.
I'm doing all the talking.
I'm fine with that.
There's some obvious positions that we can upgrade, but again, we're going to just take the best player available. That's what we did in free agency. We filled a lot of needs. We're built through the draft team, and that's what we want to do, is take the best available player. We don't want to be forced into taking a need. So that's what I'd say. That's how I'd answer the question. Want to take a shot at it?
No, I think Scott's right. I think the job that was done in free agency allowed us. There's no any one position where we feel like, hey, we need to take someone here. So what we want to do is we want to be able to look back at like 5 or 6 years and say, hey, we have a couple of great players that came out of this draft. And so if we look at it from that perspective, it's not necessarily about a need for this season. It's really trying to build the team, the team that can compete year in and year out. So we'll just try to take the best players and know that we have a roster that allows us to do that.
Steven Toronto, next question, followed by Jonathan Alexander.
This is going to be a question for Coach Rhule, but Scott can interject if he wants to. Coach, the last time you talked to us, you talked a little bit about Bill Parcells' philosophy towards team building. One of the other things Parcells also said was that if they want you to cook the dinner, you should at least be able to buy some of the groceries. Given that this is your first draft working with Scott, what would you say has been your collaborative process with him, and how controlled the shopping cart do you feel?
I think the process has been great. We're going to finish here, have lunch, and go back, meet again today. To me, it's all about vision. It's all about, it's about the Carolina Panthers, from me to Scott to every coach, to every scout, all of us understanding the vision of the type of player that we want, the type of team that we want to build, and then the vision at each position. And so when people see that thing, when they see the visions the same way, they might not agree on the player, but they understand the vision. You end up bringing in the right type of players. And so I think it's been unbelievably collaborative. I never want groupthink, so I don't want it on our coaching staff. I'm sure Scott doesn't want it on his personnel staff. If we all think the same, then no one's thinking. But what we do want is discussion, conversation. People say collaboration. Collaboration sometimes is disagreeing and arguing. So I think we have a great thing going. And I'm sure that, there's a lot of work still to be done until draft night. But, I'm very grateful for the work that the scouting, the personnel staff, and Scott's staff have done, because they're here day and night working at it. So, and as far as I'm concerned, I have no doubt that Scott does not want to put a player on this roster that we don't want to coach. There's no doubt. So, that lets you feel really good about the direction we're heading.
Hey, Scott and Matt, hope y'all are doing well. Scott, you briefly touched on this, but I'm curious, when you all, what goes into the process of weighing whether you all might trade back that number 8 or stay at 8 or do whatever else with it? What all goes into that process?
We'll look at the players that are available when we pick, and how many of those players that can help us that we've identified, how far we can go back and still get one of those players without trading out of a level. We don't want to trade out to stay beyond a certain level where the talent dips. And we know exactly where that's at in this draft, and we'll see what the options are. We're more than willing to listen to other teams, and if they want to offer picks and we feel like we can go back, still get one of our players that we want, yet have multiple picks to help keep building this team, that's what we'll do.
Let's go to Phil Orban and then Joe Person.
Hey, Matt. Last year, you had mentioned that you were so connected to the college game that you had maybe an advantage that other coaches didn't. Do you still feel like there's some kind of residual knowledge of some of these college players left over, or because you've been out for a year, that's less so this year?
No, I have, I would say that I have, when I say I mean our staff, a lot of guys on our staff too, have a lot of connections with a lot of these guys, either through recruiting or playing against them, or just through the whole process. Like, you might sign 25 guys a year, but to get to those 25, like Scott alluded to about this process, you start with 5,000. So a lot of the guys that are going through this draft, we have knowledge of or know, or like when we did the Senior Bowl, like I would sit downstairs at night and talk to guys that I had known since they were 16, 15, in some cases, Kyle Pitts, I know, is projected to go really high. I think we were the first guy that offered him a scholarship, came to our camp. So there's a lot of connections. But at the end of the day, that's just a small thing, you know. Maybe I think last year it helped us maybe a little bit in, you know, post-draft free agency, getting a guy like Miles Hartsfield, who we remember from high school. He came in and by the end of the year was a starter for us. Those are small connections, but I think we still have them.
Hey, I have two for Scott. First, will your decision on Sam's fifth-year option be impacted at all by what you do in the draft?
No, we have a plan in place, and that's something we'll address after the draft, and that's what we're focused on right now, but we have a plan in place.
Is that an expectation to pick up the option?
Again, we'll talk about it after the draft, but yes, we do have a strong plan in place.
And then secondly, John Schneider, I think, was pretty open about talking about how in Seattle you guys like corners with 32-inch arms. Is that a philosophy that you'll bring here? And then similarly, will you have a philosophy on arm length for offensive tackles? Do you have a philosophy?
You know, as far as corners, we change to what our coaches want, what they expect. We're not going to play with the exact type of corner we played with in Seattle. We look for different traits here. We adjust as a personnel staff to that. Obviously, length is important. It does show up on tape. It's important for offensive linemen as well, and it is a factor that we look at.
Let's go to Brett Jensen, followed by Jason Brown.
Hey guys, thanks. I'm just curious, in terms of free agency, are you guys for the most part done for a little bit, maybe until training camp starts and you get more cuts during training camp? Are you still active? Are you still pursuing? What's your thoughts on that for this as you're leading into the draft?
We're always looking at acquisition. We'll look at it every day. We look at the waiver wire every day. We never feel like our roster is set. We always want to create competition and upgrade the back end. So that's, if there's a player available that we think can do that, we'll do that.
Hey, gentlemen, Jason Brown, Spectrum News 1. Thanks for your time. I know Matt talked about the collaborative process of this draft, but since this is your first draft together and you're getting to know each other a little bit better, I'm hoping each of you would be willing to share maybe something new that you've learned about the other through this whole process, whether it's a funny story or even something serious.
He likes pickled eggs. There's an inside story on that one. So that's one thing I've learned about him. No, you know, and really what I've learned about him is how good he is at personnel. You can see that the evaluator in him, the way he communicates with the scouts, the clear vision, that really helps us as evaluators, and it helps our scouts know exactly what we're looking for at each position. Our coaches are, you know, very open-minded. They're developmental-minded. You know, we talk to our assistant coaches. They can tell us exactly what they want in a player, and that makes it easy for us.
The pickled eggs threw me. Besides the fact that he can sleep on any plane, that I can't. I just think he's you know, it's hard to walk in, you know, day one and everyone's kind of already there, the coaches and personnel staff. I think Scott's got a tremendous way with people, and you can see it when you're on the road and how many other, you know, I haven't had one person that knows me say, you know, anything bad about Scott. That people rave about him. I think because he treats people well, and I think that's a really important quality to me. I think you heard me say that about players earlier. You know, I just want to be around people who treat people well, and I think Scott's ability to get along with people, to manage personalities, and also still have a really strong opinion and be the leader is unique, and I think it's something that you can see right away.
Let's go to Elena Getzenberg, followed by David Newton.
First, I have a couple questions for each that are all kind of short. For Scott, is there any update? I know you talked about Sam's fifth-year option, but on DJ's fifth-year option, is it kind of the same approach with waiting until after the draft?
Yeah, we're focused on the draft right now. Those are all things that we think about. Obviously, it's something you manage every day, but something we'll address after the draft.
And concerning Teddy, is there any update with regards to those talks, or are you still having conversations with his representation, or what's the latest?
Yeah, we've had a lot of dialogue with Teddy's agent, with Teddy, and Teddy's part of our team right now. That's where we're at, and we're moving forward with this.
And then for Matt, I was curious about having guys back in the building. I know you had talked about how you were hopeful that that would be the case, but what's the past week been like so far?
Well, I mean, it's great. You get into coaching because you love working with players, you love being around players, you love being around the game. And this is a really big building, and when the team's not here, the halls are a little quieter. So, obviously, we're not around them while they lift or run. Those are the rules. But just seeing guys as they test in the morning, seeing guys, walking through, seeing guys leaving, that's fun for me. I believe in the concept of team, and to me, you build team by being around each other. And so that's for us as coaches. That's for the players. So I love having those guys there that are here. And my approach has been, it's voluntary. If you're here, great. If not, we know we trust you and support you and love you. So, but having the guys here has been really fun.
And then I was just curious, is there any major difference? I know you liked working with Marty and all that, but between this year and last year, just differences between Marty and Scott, and anything you've noticed in particular this year?
Yeah, I can't even comment on last year because we didn't have any draft meetings because of the situation that happened, last year. So I was saying to like a couple of our scouts the other day, like, this is the first time I've really sat in draft meetings with them. Last year, they had their meetings, then we went to the Senior Bowl together, and then everything just kind of evaporated. So it was really just, Marty and I one-off. I worked with the coaches. So this process has been really good, just to have the coaches go in with the personnel staff, share our vision for players, and I think the process that's been really good about it has been, if the coaching staff sees someone different, then the personnel people go back, and Scott and his team go back and they watch. And if we see it differently, we go back and we watch. And so there's been this kind of really healthy watch the tape process, and again, you have to have disagreement or else nothing good happens. And so I think the process has been really good, and it's just so different from last year just because of COVID. I'm sure had there been no COVID, we would have had this process or something like it last year. So it's good for me just to be involved in it.
Yep, I got a couple of questions here. Scott, first for you. How many players do you have a top 10 grade on, and how's that going to impact your decision to trade back?
Right now, we have about 16 in the first round. That's our number, and we ranked them 1 through 16 how we would take them. As far as the top, I don't really look at it as how many are top 10 worthy. It's just we're looking more for the fit for our team.
And Matt, you talked what a big advantage the Senior Bowl was to you and your staff in evaluating players. How many players do you see coming out of that evaluation that could impact this team?
I don't know the exact number. I think I saw a couple of the guys that we coached in the Senior Bowl. I saw them at their pro days, and they looked significantly bigger and stronger. And it just reaffirmed for me how much COVID and the college off season, and some of these guys, like, they thought the season was canceled, and all of a sudden it was on. It just reaffirmed for me how much you have to just keep working through the draft, because some of these guys, like, they didn't have a chance to work out for 6 months, and all of a sudden now they looked great at their pro days. So, but I think there's several that are on our board, and then part of the Senior Bowl was eliminating some guys, part of it was adding some guys. But I think there were a lot of guys on that team that could on the Senior Bowl team, both sides, that could help us.
And how many pickled eggs can you eat in a draft night?
I don't like pickled eggs. I just want to make sure everybody understand that. We went to Fargo, North Dakota, and the people in Fargo are amazing, absolutely amazing. And where we went to dinner, they said that was one of their delicacies. That was one of their best dishes, so I ordered it, and I ate it. And you know what? If I go back to Fargo, I'm getting them again. But
it was terrible.
I love
it was awful.
All right, guys, we got time for 2 more, so let's go to Jonathan Jones and then finish with Josh Klein.
Hey, guys, this is probably for Scott. Scott, what's the information stream been like, either with prospects and getting information on them, and then also information from other teams? Like, what is your confidence level right now about what's going to happen in the draft from basically picks 3 to 7?
Well, as far as the information, are you talking about like how we acquired it throughout the season this year? The difficulties with that?
Yeah, in a year like so.
Yeah, it's really hard because some schools allowed our scouts on campus, so it was a little bit easier to get in. It was more normal that way. Other schools, you couldn't even step foot on campus, and really, it was probably most of the schools right there. You couldn't walk into the building. So you have to look for different ways, and good scouts will find a different way to do it. They're not going to follow just the path of everybody else. They'll make their calls. They have their connections. That's what they rely on. That's what a good scout does. And as far as you said 3 through 7, we're always looking for intel. We talk to a lot of different people. We talk to teams. We talk to agents. We rely on our network to get the best information we can get. Nothing's 100%, obviously, but you can get a feel of how it might go.
And then just a quick follow-up for Matt. Matt, did you get in any elevators with prospects during this time? Did you talk with anyone where you said, you know what, after this Zoom call, you're off the list?
Not off the Zoom call, but yeah, there's been guys that I think for all of us that we've said, hey, this guy's just probably not a great fit here. Be it the Senior Bowl, be it just going through the whole process. We want a certain type of person, and there's a lot of them out there. And if someone's not right for us, hopefully they'll be right for somebody else.
Let's go to Josh Klein for the final question.
The war room this year, what is the war room going to look like? I know last year everybody was separate, and have you guys gotten a chance to see what the Rams are doing out there in LA, and are you a little bit jealous?
That is interesting. That'd be a lot of fun. We did opt. We're going to do it up here in the stadium in the upper deck here, the 300 level. We opted to have 10 people in the room, and that's how we're going to operate this year. It is a collaborative process. All of our scouts will be involved. Coaches will be involved. But we did opt for the 10 in the room during this time. But, yeah, the Rams definitely looks like a lot of fun.
And then, Matt, I was wondering if we could get your reaction to the newly rescheduled Dave Matthews Band tour opening in Raleigh in July, and your favorite song.
July 23rd.
I'm excited.
Fired up. Favorite song? Oh, you know what? This is going to be controversial, but I would probably say You and Me. Just
No Gray Streets.
That's what I'm saying. It's controversial, I know, but I would say You and Me.
All right, guys. We appreciate everyone joining. Scott, Matt, we thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you.